A glint of static flickered across the zero-gravity combat dome as the announcer's voice boomed through the chamber like a planetary alert. Final match of the rotation: Human Cadet Leo Strayhorn versus Ivorian Ensign Barathol. The arena responded in waves of murmurs, a collective exhale of amusement and thinly veiled contempt. Against the metallic blue curvature of the dome, Leo's silhouette floated sideways, limbs loosely splayed, posture bordering on lazy. It was the posture of someone who either had no idea what they were doing or didn't care if they died trying. From the observation tier, Commander Shervax, a towering Siraki with glistening carapace plates and 8 articulate limbs, clicked his mandibles in dry amusement. Humans shouldn't be in single combat drills, he said to no one in particular, though his voice carried. Their internal structure lacks proper fluid anchoring. Their spines bend in places that should not bend. Yeah. Leo's voice crackled through the comms, tone deliberately obnoxious. Well, we bend because we're built to bounce back. No one laughed. The Ivorian contingent regarded Leo with the same indifference one might reserve for malfunctioning equipment. Ensign Barathol, meanwhile, hovered precisely within his quadrant, arms folded, motionless, expression unreadable beneath the iridescent sheen of his cranial mask. He had 6 years of formal zero-gravity dueling training, 5 consecutive wins this season, and muscle fibers evolved for fine-tuned thrust corrections. Leo had elbows. And attitude. Let's keep this brief, Barathol said. Your orbit is already decaying. The signal to begin was a pulse of violet light, sudden and blinding. Leo twisted reflexively, rotating on his y-axis, arms windmilling uselessly in the void. His first burst from the suit thrusters sent him tumbling backward like a dropped wrench. The crowd erupted, not in cheers, but with the kind of polite derision usually reserved for drunk uncles at wedding speeches. From below, the human cadet squad shifted uncomfortably. Sergeant Nor chewed a protein bar like it had insulted her family. If he dies, I'm not writing the letter to his mom, she muttered. But Leo wasn't panicking. In fact, he was smiling. Tumbling had its benefits. It gave him time to think, to scan Barathol's positioning, and to count exactly how many times the Ivorian pivoted between thrusts. Precise. Predictable. Come on, Leo, he whispered to himself. You've danced worse routines with dumber shoes. Barathol struck. With a sudden burst of momentum, the Ivorian lunged, blade gleaming in his dominant arm. Leo didn't block, he twisted. It was barely controlled, a spin induced by throwing one arm wide and tucking a knee. He corkscrewed sideways, the blade whistling past his ribs, close enough to clip fabric. The crowd murmured, not quite applause but not quite dismissal either. What exactly was that? Shervax asked, frowning. Did the human just dodge by accident? The second approach was less forgiving. Barathol fired twin microthrusters and spun into a tight inward spiral, a favored tactic of his species. Leo's left shoulder took a hard glancing strike. He grimaced, jerking into another full-body roll. Pain pulsed, sharp and immediate. No bone breaks, but the bruise would be spectacular. Nice, Leo hissed, flipping himself off a dome wall, rebounding like a ping-pong ball. Didn't think I needed a tattoo in that spot, but thanks. Still, he was learning. This wasn't just a fight, it was a physics exam with a sadist sense of humor. Every spin bled energy. Every angle mattered. He had no mass advantage, no armor benefit. But he had momentum. And chaos. He let himself drift, body slack, rotating slowly now, deliberately. He extended one arm to elongate the spin, then snapped it in, increasing his rotational velocity. He braced a foot against an internal ridge and launched himself across the dome, not in a straight line, but in a spiraling vector. Barathol blinked. It was the first sign of uncertainty. Leo grinned. Let's dance, glow stick. His first hit wasn't clean. It was a glancing elbow to Barathol's upper thigh as Leo spun past, carried by centrifugal force. But it landed. A real, physical, unignorable hit. Gasps rippled through the audience. The human squad stood straighter. From above, Shervax's brow ridge twitched. Interesting. Barathol hissed, adjusting his trajectory. You think you can flail your way to victory? Leo looped in midair, breath short, heartbeat hammering. Not flailing. I'm improvising. Another clash, this one tighter. Leo twisted mid-spin, legs corkscrewing around Barathul's blade path. His boot clipped the Ivorian's side, and both spun apart, rebounding like kinetic marbles. The crowd fell silent again, but this time it wasn't mockery. It was curiosity. Something new was happening. Something untrained, untheorized. In the observation ring, a junior analyst whispered, "Should we record that maneuver?" "We are," replied her superior, eyes narrowed. "Though I'm not sure what to call it. Accidental spiral velocity transfer." Shervax shook his head.
No.
The human is doing it on purpose now. He's weaponizing drift. Leo hovered mid-chamber, chest heaving, spinning slowly on an off-axis roll. His head pounded. His left arm was barely responsive. But Barathul wasn't charging. He was reassessing. Calcul. Barathul recalculated. His dual-core targeting implants flickered in his retinal display, adapting to Leo's erratic vector patterns. The human's maneuvering lacked elegance, predictability, or even proper thrust discipline, but it was undeniably effective. Worse, it was improvisational. There was no algorithm to solve for chaos. Leo didn't charge. He waited. Still spinning, still drifting, arms slightly extended, fingers flexing to guide his roll. The arena lights caught the bruising along his jaw, now darkening into sickly purple. But his eyes were sharp, amused.
Alive.
"You can't maintain that," Barathul said, adjusting his lateral stabilizers. "Spinning isn't a strategy. It's a stall tactic." Leo licked blood off his lip and flashed a tired grin. "Then why are you stalling?" Barathul struck again, a feint into a sweeping slash. Leo twitched the wrong way on purpose and spun into a full-bodied roll. But this time, he bent at the hip mid-rotation, altering his spin path into a new axis entirely. The unexpected curve of motion yanked him beneath the strike and sent him barreling shoulder-first into Barathul's flank. The sound was dull but solid. Flesh against armor. The Ivorian reeled backward, momentarily destabilized. Leo bounced off him, grunting, blinking away stars from the collision. "Jesus, you're built like a vending machine," he wheezed. The crowd no longer laughed. Some leaned forward, others whispering hurried notes into data pads. Commander Shervax had gone uncharacteristically silent. Leo pulled himself into a roll again, this time tighter, faster. He wasn't just spinning, he was controlling it. Using the conservation of angular momentum, he alternated limb positions mid-spin to bend his trajectory, turning what looked like uncontrolled motion into curved, deliberate orbits. There were no formal names for these patterns. They didn't teach them. They weren't tactics. They were instinct. Back on Earth, he'd done something similar in old gymnastic competitions. Backflips over bar beams, spirals on trampoline mats, dizzy cartwheels into collapsing landings. He'd always been marked down for lack of control. But in Zero-G, that wildness, his chaotic core, was finally a weapon. "You think this makes you special?" Barathul snarled, voice rising. "A fluke doesn't rewrite physics." Leo responded by accelerating into another spiral, then at the apex of his spin, unleashed a low sweep kick that caught Barathul mid-drift. The Ivorian twisted violently, trying to right himself, but his rotation was misaligned. He smashed into the dome wall with a metallic clang, leaving a faint dent in the outer plating.
Gasps.
Silence. Then, a low thrum of murmured awe. On the observation deck, Lieutenant Mariva, a Mazhari with crystalline neural fronds, looked sideways at Shervax. The human's not following any formal combat loop. He's reacting in microseconds. Pure pattern disruption. Shervax's mandibles clicked. He's not reacting. He's conducting. In the dome, Leo panted heavily. His limbs burned. Every joint screamed from unnatural torque. But something had shifted. Not just in the fight, but in the spectators. Their silence felt different now. Less amused. More invested. He glanced down and saw Sergeant Nor give him a thumbs up, her other hand balled into a white-knuckled fist. Even his teammates looked stunned. Not because he was still standing, but because, for the first time, the idea of winning wasn't insane. Barathol was slower now. Less precise. Hesitating. The Ivorian doctrine prized dominance through superiority, measured, repeated patterns. He was out of rhythm. Out of script. Leo knew the feeling well. It was where he lived. The next exchange was a blur. Leo faked a right-side spin, then reversed mid-roll using a wall-mounted stabilizer nub. He launched sideways with a tucked shoulder and unleashed a blind hammer fist as he passed. It struck Barathol's shoulder hard enough to make the Ivorian grunt, a sound no one had heard from him before. Another point landed. Momentum was his weapon now. Not just physical, but psychological. "You don't like it when things don't go to plan, do you?" Leo said through gritted teeth. "Guess that's the human advantage. We never had a plan." Barathol lashed out wildly, striking nothing but air and inertia. He overextended, and Leo shot forward, caught him at the waist with both knees, then twisted in midair to drag them both into a tumble. As they spun, Leo gripped Barathol's armor plate and used it as a pivot, redirecting himself into a backward somersault. When he broke free, Barathol was left flailing, tumbling into the far side of the dome. A single cheer rang out from someone in the back row. It was quickly joined by a second, then a scattering of applause, hesitant but growing. Shervax leaned forward slowly. "They call it Spin-and-Str. I heard a technician say it. What a stupid name." Mariva nodded. Stupid, but terrifying. Inside the dome, Leo floated still, chest rising and falling in quick, heavy bursts. Sweat floated off his forehead, forming orbs that drifted around his head like moons. Barathol righted himself, slower than before, shoulder twitching from an apparent sprain. "End it," Barathol hissed. "If you think you can." Leo tilted his head. "You really want to see what happens when I stop spinning?"
No.
"I want to see if you can strike without it." Leo smiled, and then launched. No preamble. No clever quip. Just thrust, twist, and speed. As he spiraled forward, arms pulled close, he timed the acceleration just as Barathol extended an arm to counter. But Leo, at the last instant, extended both legs outward and caught the Ivorian square in the chest with a twisting double kick. The force threw Barathol across the chamber. He didn't recover this time. He floated, stunned, limp, arms drifting in surrender. The arena went dead quiet. Leo floated in place, arms sagging. "Spin-and-Str," he muttered to himself.
Huh.
Guess the name stuck. Outside, a red light blinked to blue. Match concluded. No roar. Just stunned silence. And then, from the gallery, Shervax's voice cut through with calm finality. "Promote the human." Medical drones whirred quietly around Leo as he floated in the debriefing chamber, chest bare and bruises blossoming like purple nebulae across his torso. One of them beeped disapprovingly, scanning his dislocated shoulder, then began realignment with a sharp hiss. Leo didn't flinch. His attention was elsewhere, fixed on the translucent hollow panel displaying the combat footage in slow, looping detail. Every twist, every tumble, every split-second strike. Behind him, the observation glass parted with a mechanical sigh. Commander Shervax entered, his 8 legs moving in perfect sync, his armored frame glinting under the overhead lights. His presence distorted the air, part biological gravity, part bureaucratic pressure. "Cadet Strayhorn," Shervax said, voice clipped unreadable. "Do you even comprehend what you've done?" Leo didn't turn. He rubbed his shoulder absently. "You mean surviving? Or publicly humiliating your golden boy?" There was a silence long enough to be mistaken for threat. Then, both. Shervax circled him slowly, eyes tracking every micro-expression. "Your technique, if one can call it that, is unorthodox. Dangerous. Inconsistent. Completely outside approved training protocols." "That's because it wasn't trained," Leo said, finally turning. "It was human. Improvised. That's kind of our thing." Shervax stopped directly across from him, his upper limbs folding behind his back. Improvisation is not a virtue in war. It is a liability. Leo snorted. You sure about that? 'Cause your champion's still bouncing off the walls like a failed sim drone, and I'm the one still breathing. A twitch passed through Shervax's mandibles. Annoyance? Or something closer to amusement? Across the station, word had already spread. Replays of the match had flooded the netwaves, some set to music, others analyzed frame by frame. Alien tacticians had begun dissecting the footage, trying to assign names to maneuvers Leo didn't even remember doing. A trending forum among Zendari tacticians dubbed it Disruption Ballet. Humans called it Spin-and-Str. The name was stupid, but it stuck. Leo floated toward the central command screen. Footage paused on the moment he delivered the final blow, legs outstretched, eyes narrowed, face twisted into a mixture of fury and absolute clarity. He didn't recognize himself in that frame. Shervax joined him. The Galactic Union's training doctrine assumes efficiency is the highest form of combat evolution. Predictability, structure, precision. Leo shrugged with one arm, the other still sore. Yeah, well, humans evolved running from things with teeth and bad attitudes. We're built for the unknown. Shervax tapped a long digit against the screen. Then perhaps the doctrine is incomplete. The words landed with unexpected weight. Admission wasn't Shervax's style. Praise even less so. Leo blinked, unsure whether he should grin or brace for a trap. Instead, Shervax continued. Effective immediately, Cadet Leo Strayhorn is promoted to Tactical Combat Demonstrator. You will lead tomorrow's interspecies drill. Your maneuvers will be analyzed, catalogued, and, against my better instincts, taught. Leo stared.
Wait.
You want me to teach? Shervax's tone was razor-sharp. I want to understand how you turn failure into velocity. I want to know why unpredictability works in a structured environment. And I want to make sure no other species learns it before we do. Leo floated backward, holding up his hands. All right, but you might want to pad the walls. My lessons tend to be kinetic. A chime sounded from the comm wall. Sergeant Noor's face appeared in the feed, eyes wide with disbelief and pride.
Kid.
You made Commander throw out doctrine mid-cycle. Do you even understand what that means? Leo rubbed his temples.
Nope.
I was too busy not dying. She laughed, then her face grew serious. Word is already spreading. Other species are watching the feed. Some are not happy. Let him watch, Leo said. Hell, let him try it. The feed cut. Shervax stood silently beside him, arms folded. Do not underestimate what you've triggered, the commander said. They saw you. They saw humanity. And now they're reevaluating everything. Leo stared back at the pause footage. Good. About time. He left the chamber with slow, deliberate movement, each thrust from his stabilizers smoother now, calculated but instinctual. There was still pain, still exhaustion, but under it all, momentum. The next morning, the training dome was different. More packed. More tense. Spectators from dozens of species lined the tiers, recording, noting, waiting. The humans wore fresh uniforms. The other cadets looked at them differently now, not with disdain, but with calculation. Leo entered last, carrying nothing but a mouthguard and a knotted stretch band. A younger cadet from the Mazhari delegation drifted over to him nervously. Instructor, Strayhorn. Leo turned, already chewing gum. Yeah, I've been trying the spin maneuver. I can't control the axis, decoupling during acceleration. I crash. Leo tilted his head. Good. That's where it starts. You crash. Then you learn to crash better. The Mazhari blinked. That's illogical. Exactly, Leo said, and patted him on the shoulder. That's why it works. As the signal blared to start the next session, Leo spun slowly in place, eyes narrowing with a familiar grin. The galaxy had rules. But humans, as always, had found a loophole. When you're out of control, you're finally hard to predict. And in war, unpredictability wasn't weakness. It was a weapon.